So Taleb have noted the value of domain independence, the ability to use a metaphor from one domain in a different domain and link through such use link the domains. And this is a session of working on my journal. So I have a bunch of notes and I want to find a better form for these notes. So Bashlachev has a song called a Minute of Silence. And I've been feeling time with Jules harp, and this particular Jules harp is on low frequency, like 40 Hertz. I picked it for this frequency. And this low frequency isn't transferred as well over YouTube streaming, so I've been looking at some of my streams and the sound isn't quite the way I'd like it to. Of this Jules harp, it's kind of grating. I think grating more than in real life, and I think it's because much of this low frequency band is being cut off. I don't know. And also this subject that can we bear silence? In some relationships, it is an interesting marker. Can we bear silence in this relationship, or do we feel this uh, fear, of being boring? So this need to feel the silence often comes as a compensation of the fear, like so it might be a marker of the lack of safety. And on the contrary, when we feel safe in relationship, we often find in ourselves this capacity for silence, for experience silence together. And Bashlachev's the minute of silence, he puts forth this interesting idea that silence maybe still can save you. So it is a song that it addressed to some other characters. Bashlachev is like speaking to some other character, and he tells him, silence may yet still save you. A minute of silence might still yet save you. And YouTube tells me there is a minute of silence. The audio streams can't betray zero. So I have sound. But my internet connectivity, maybe they have just detected. I don't know. I don't know if it will survive the stream or if it will be silent. So we're using this domain independence model here. Domain independence model between very different domains. Domain of spirits and magic that deals with spirits on one hand, society of mind, brain agents, treating mind as a set of subsystems on another hand, and dealing with crews, with human society, where a human is a unit on the third hand, and I don't know if you have three hands, but I do. So Mengulch, so Chet pointed me at this paper, Mengulch, disaster. And I have some notes on it, so I didn't took the time to find this particular piece, but I have some notes. Perhaps it's more important when you have a partner than an organization when you flight files. In a cockpit under crisis, the only unit that makes sense is face-to-face synthesis of meaning. So he notes while discussing this disaster, he notes disaster collapse of sense-making in organization, right? While discussing why why there might be a breakdown, how organizations break, how crews break. He notes that perhaps relationships within organizations start between pairs. So maybe a unit, organizational unit, is a pair, and everything else is built from pairs. So on this video here, we can see. I'm addicted to seeing myself and seeing this green bar. This green bar is a benchmark of connectivity. I'm already addicted to it. So if we look deeper into any shape, any structure, we see that there are 2 points, this point and this point, and a line between them. And this is where it all starts. Without those 2 points, the shape is impossible. So we add another pair, and suddenly we have a triangle. And usually we think of units, special units in 3D in giants as triangles, but if you look even deeper, we find pairs, we find lines between 2 dots. So this is also true for organizations. They are built of pairs. Uh, it's, reminds me of gospel, where two or three gathered in my name, I am there between them. Uh, so when we have a dot which is connected to another dot, we have an organization. Connect this first dot to a second dot, to a third dot, and we have a triangle. Karl Weick puts it. So I might be testing some silence. Simply working in silence and see if we can have this. If we feel safe enough to not having this need to feel the silence. Time structure, the need to structure the time that Berne spoke of. Hmm. So I'm leaving it at that because I have also these notes, so I can always go to my notes and find what so I do not quote Karl Weick in the journal because I have the quotes in another linked place. And another, so Timofeyev, this article, so better than average might need a better than average level of psychological development. So Timofeyev, he tries to classify the levels of communication. He observes in how we relate to other people. Uh, so there is a level of somatic tensions. Like when we are born, we do not know what a mother is. We do not know even what a breast is. We only feel these somatic tensions, like the need to breathe, the need to feed, the linked crying. And this is a level of relationships, of relation to another, a level of relation to another. We can relate to another being simply on a somatic level, on the level of somatic tensions, and maybe we often are. We can, these levels, they remain with us. So there might sometimes be in our communication with people the elements of the somatic level still. The second and the most common level is the level of manipulation, where we treat another person as a part of our environment or a part of our body. So we learned to move a hand or to take this juice harp here and move it around. We can apply our ideas into life through movement. And this is how most of people usually relate to other people as things that can be moved. And it's a sneaky level because we can be good to a person, we can appreciate them, we can encourage them, we can go into all kinds of psychological manipulations and dances without treating them as a person. We simply think that it is a sin, and we will have this dance, like tell him how good he is, how we appreciate his contribution, how we adore him and want to be like him, and how amazing and how humble we are in his presence. Not necessarily that thick, but it is a dance that we learn. We observe how other people are dancing this dance, and we start to repeat the moves, and we can, if we put a bit of attention, a bit of self-development into this dance, we can be a very good dance partners. We can very efficiently be a nice and kind and good person, or when the situation calls for it, a horrible and terrible and scary person, without thinking about the other as the other. It is simply a thing around which we dance in order to make it move. So it is a sneaky level. Then there is a level of communication, which, by the way, I should add this to index. The level of communication. Hmm. I should keep this one around because it shows me where the video is. So I will This level of communication is similar, maybe, to what Eric Berne called intimacy. Intimacy. So Berne had also, and this, by the way, this article was made by a transactional analyst. So there is a link with Berne ideas. Yeah. And for Berne, he classified engagements into rituals, pastimes, like we having some quality time with someone, but there is also intimacy when we kind of not bound by fear or by some needs and communicate with another person as another person. We don't need to, when we do not need to think of them as a thing that we need to move, or it is a bit of suspension of disbelief. Suspension of disbelief, because we always, in relationship with society, we always have some needs buzzing, like Kid Johnstone in Impro. And I like mentioning Kid Johnstone about that. He and it is again about the minute of minute of silence, Bashlachev's minute of silence, because most of the time, most of communication, why communication is boring? Why can one communication be boring and one communication might be super interesting and engaging? Keith Johnson experimented with it, and he noted that communication is super interesting and engaging when there are hidden status transactions, when it is a question of survival, of building social hierarchy. And Peterson in 12 Rules for Life talks also about this status machinery that more than 300 million years old. It is the status machinery is very deep and also very prevalent in human society. It's interesting because of the hidden status transactions. Maybe the minute of silence can save us from us. So minute of silence, it's like a suspension of disbelief. We need to inhibit the need to establish social hierarchy, inhibit the need to treat a person like a thing, which we need to move. We might inhibit our other needs and our other fears. And when we inhibit all those things, we create a free space where we can interact with a person, as another being, as a free agent. Peterson. uh, posit that the communication level in the terms the intimacy can be achieved in kind of suspension of disbelief by inhibiting the status of the instant might otherwise dominate might otherwise override communication. So let me quote. I leave the bold for special. Just quote. So communication is actually figuring out that another human being is another human being with their own free will, with their own agency. And it seems simple, and it is deceptively simple. We think that we know it, but fuck no, we don't. Because most of the time I need to trample this realization, and for this realization to be a realization, it needs to be in the focus. It needs to be a major part of our attentional loop. Only then we treat another being as another being. Only when our attention loop is built around this realization of them as being a free agent. And existential level. Existential. It's a level I deal a lot lately in my experiments, but I won't go much deeper into it in this entry. Oh, and I have a red dot. Red dot. Ew. And I want to make this transparent, this taskbar. I want to make the taskbar transparent. So I did this trick once, but I seem to be failing in focusing on the taskbar. Right. I like when the taskbar is transparent as well. You need to capture the focus somehow in order for the hotkey to work. So this is the way it's going to get weird. Hopefully it will be sufficiently weird. because all this translates to spirit communication and to self-hypnosis, almost one-to-one. It's a microcosm principle. It works, domain independence works very well across the subjects of how we communicate with other beings, other human beings, but also in how we communicate with spirits and in how we communicate with subsystems of our mind. So when we are communicating with other human beings, we can talk about motivational streams. It's basically how can we make this other person interested. This perhaps is the level of manipulation, right? How can we make them interested? But what is interesting? What is interesting is that in figuring this out, we often can benefit from going to other levels, right? So we can go to a somatic level. A person might be interested basically in a sex, in a kind of physical tensions, or simply in us holding their hand, or maybe in us laughing together. It is a shared somatic experience, or maybe listening to a song together, listening to a song. By the way, when we listen to music, our brains synchronize. It's an interesting phenomenon, kind of telepathy, which can be measured very with precise measurements. But maybe they want simply for us to be in the same room with them, to feel, I don't know, to feel better. There is a lot of somatic like for example, for instance, eating together is very effective because it harks back to our safety measurements. We evolutionary kind of like when we are in a dangerous environment, not a post-scarcity of which some people talk about, in a scarcity environment where we have to hunt and gather. That we can feed is a good sign. Then we have something to eat or drink. And I like also to quote this Water Truce of Mowgli. I wonder if I have it here. Mowgli. Why am I always missing this? How come I always Mowgli? We be of one blood, you and I. I really should add this to my index. I might need to pick the link. So they have this water truce. Uh, so modern research have found that if people gather together and eat together, uh, it spikes the unloneliness. Spikes the unloneliness. So it's a very strong sign for our automatic machinery that everything is alright, that we are safe. And I mentioned in some previous videos that loneliness and depression and friendship are related to safety, to our automatic safety measurements. So when we simply go out and eat with other people in a community setting, maybe we feel safe, and suddenly loneliness is cured. Mm. Indeed, we often grow to depend on some community and then there are like tokens, like a coin is a token of value. So there are tokens of safety, tokens of safety. Recognition might be seen as a token of safety. If someone recognizes, mentions me, recognizes my contribution, I'm feeling safer in this community, and therefore I'm feeling it has a huge effect on psychological and biological, like Katseopa noticed and kind of made more public this fact that loneliness is in fact leads to more death than obesity and smoking and heart. I'm not remember about maybe even more than heart failures should indexes. Uh, so it has a huge impact on psychophysiological uh, settings. So we can be completely reconfigured depending on uh, whether we have these safety tokens. Um, so Hamilton, she explained it, I think, explained well how simply attention can be a very powerful influence on a person. Simply giving them full attention is like it might be like giving them the best of drugs. It might be like making they weak, not just making they making they weak. Yeah. uh, it's it, so it is she knows how flirt is simply giving someone attention, but how it's also hugely powerful. Uh, I think it wasn't flirt. Should clarify. Has not seen flirt. So there are universal sources of social motivation, and safety is a source of motivation that can be streamed, and attention is a source of motivation. And we can stream these to people in an organization. We can share the attention with them. We can share the glory with them. And this can feed them, this can sustain them, this can um, help them in their efforts to survive in this life. But we can also share this with spirits and with subsystems of our mind. This works also well on this microcosm level. Uh, so, and like I've been mentioning, going to for example, angry game mentions in eight kinds of fun, eight kinds of fun, angry game, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck, eight kinds, what the fuck game, main motivation, eight kinds combination, eight kinds of fun. sensory pleasure. So somatic, sometimes there is a somatic motivation, and in eight kinds of fun, Angry mentions that when we play a game, simply throwing the dice or working with cards, it might be a very strong motivation for some people. And a game where I have to throw a dice, or where I have to sit on the table and work with like those small figures, role-playing figures, like orc or a goblin or a elf or a mermaid. Working with those figures might be a major source of motivation. Sometimes even is the only one. I mean, so major that it trumps everything else. And the game with these elements might, for some people, be fantastic, and a game without these elements for some people might be completely meaningless. Like, and they might not even care about safety or attention or whatever. They might simply care about touching this stuff and playing with it physically, somatically. Somatic. So a person might prefer to be manipulated in a certain way. Intimacy, honesty is not for everyone. A lot of people prefer to participate in a kind of manipulative transactions. Some might value communication, being treated as a free agent. Some might prefer, if they can, address some existential questions. I remember one of the Christian saint fathers, ancient saint fathers, mentioning in his writings that it is very rare and very valuable when you can meet a person with whom you can talk about spiritual things. And note, please note, that this Saint Father, he was moving among the monastics. He was speaking about living in monasteries, and he was writing to future monastics, to people who would live in monasteries and communicate with monks, with lots and lots of spiritual people. And in this environment, he says it is very rare and very valuable. And sometimes he even got so far as to stress it by saying that you can meet such a person once in a lifetime. So only once in your life was his idea. So only once in your life you can meet a person with whom you can speak of spiritual matters, and I, I prefer to disagree with him on this point of this being a once in a lifetime experience. I prefer to think that, in fact, if you want that kind of communication, you can make it more likely to happen in your life. But it is a rare rare treat to have something with whom you might discuss the spiritual and existential matters. Existential matters, not the same, they intersect, but it is also rare to speak about them. And this is also what John Beccio, and I think another. So I've seen this idea now and then. First time I remember it from John Beccio, that oftentimes the psychologist is the only person capable of bearing the truth, bearing the truth. So yeah, recently Andrew Austin repeated this same thought, but so I've seen it from John Beccio and from Andrew Austin, that oftentimes people, so a person might have a terminal illness, or they might have some condition, or they might be going through some problem, through some crisis. But oftentimes the closest, the family, the friends, the closest peers, the closest network of this person is incapable of discussing truthfully, discussing honestly this crisis, because communication is dominated, is overridden by something else. There is an override, like social customs. I shouldn't tell him about it, or I should try to be supportive, or I should try to frame things in a positive way. These patterns, of behavior, it's basically manipulation, right? It's manipulative patterns of behavior. They trample communication, and the person in a crisis often have no one to communicate. Lots of people who seems to be supportive and spewing something that seems to be useful, but no one to communicate with, because they all on this level of manipulation, and nobody takes time to inhibit manipulation and allow for communication to happen. So existential level is very rare, and it might be a very strong motivation, for a person to have this, and simply having. So it's again a bit about pairs, about those pairs. Like when we have two dots and a line between a pair, which is the basis of any organization. Ginnett, I think Ginnett mentions, actually no, not Ginnett, but another book, Kozlovsky, work groups and teams in organizations, mentions how everything everything hangs often, for a new person especially. Everything hangs in an organization on this pair relationship between a new person and someone who communicates with them. So when we go into an organization, we often find someone who will communicate with us. It might be a manager, or it might be some of our peers. It might be someone who we met when we went to grab some coffee, like, right? So a lot depends and a lot hangs on how this communication will. And Kozlovsky notes that organizations, they spend a lot of time on organizational policy, on how organization communicates with the person. But it doesn't matter. What matters much more is how this other person who we met at coffee break communicates with us. So it's all about pairs. And yeah, if we have this existential communication